Perfect. So let's start. Welcome, everyone. It's so good to see some of you coming back every week and also to see new faces, new names joining in. This is our fourth destination webinar, and I have to say that I've been very, very happy with the results so far. I mean, from your feedback, from your emails, it looks like you're all enjoying them and finding them useful, which at the end of the day is our aim. I mean, we want to give you more information. We want to give you the tools that you need to sell Italy as a destination. We have more webinars lined up for May, so bear with me. I will give you the details of the next one at the end, as usual. Today, we are going to explore Liguria. So Liguria is a coastal region in northern Italy, which is famous for the Cinque Terre, which is this unique group of little villages right on the sea that everybody wants to visit. But there's so much more in Liguria than just the Cinque Terre. And so today we're going to find out what else you can do in Liguria. As a special guest today, we have Gabriele Olla from Belmont Hotels, which will talk to you about the Splendido and Splendido Mare in Portofino. So in a bit, I'll leave you to Gabriele to give you more information about his hotels. But let's start discovering our 5 W's as usual. So the why, the where, what, when, and who of Liguria. Why Liguria? Well, Liguria offers everything from nature, mountains, culture, entertainment, and nightlife. There are rocky coasts interrupted by small coves and plenty of beaches of fine golden sand. The Ligurian Sea also attracts several specimens of sperm whales and dolphins who live safely in this area known as the Sanctuary of Cetaceans. There are towns and villages full of history, culture, and tradition, which have seen the passage of ancient people coming from the sea. And then there's the Cinque Terre and the Gulf of the Poets and the Riviera of the Palme and the Riviera dei Fiori, which make up the famous coast of Liguria, which stretches from Amelia to Ventimiglia, basically on the border with France, with more than 180 miles of coast. And if you are in Liguria, as I said, you can easily go across the border and go to the Côte d'Azur. If you think that Nice is only 40 kilometers away from Ventimiglia and Menton is only 12 kilometers. So it's really, really close by. Where is Liguria? So as we just said, Liguria is bordering with France. The region has impressive mountains and lovely rolling hills, but also, and then all these mountains and the hills overlook and they all end up in the Ligurian Sea. The region has 4 provinces: Genoa, which is the capital, Imperia, Savona, and La Spezia. Oh, I can see that my mark Savona disappears somewhere. I mean, the 4th dot is Savona, obviously. The coast is divided into the Riviera di Levante, which literally is the coast of the rising sun, that goes from Genoa to Punta Corvo, and the Riviera di Ponente, which is the coast of the setting sun, that goes from Genoa to the French border of Ventimiglia. The region has 1 international airport in Genoa. Traveling by car is quite easy, not in the Cinque Terre, but we'll talk about later. But it's also easy to go around by train, because the railway network that crosses almost all of the region links the 4 provinces, but also lots of small villages, both on the coast and inland. What to do in Liguria? Well, Liguria offers the best of both worlds, these being high mountains that slope right into the Mediterranean Sea. It is like an amphitheater in shape that faces the sea, and it has its own special microclimate. And these 2 dramatic landscapes have something to offer to anyone, from beach lovers to swimmers, sailors, hikers, and mountain bikers. I mean, there's really something for everybody and for every taste. In the past, many famous writers, philosophers, and artists have come to Liguria to heal themselves, thanks to the air, the sea breeze, the scenery, the food and wine, obviously, which all combined are definitely, I mean, a recipe for well-being. So that's why he was so popular with artists in the past. But let's start from the Riviera di Levante, and then we will move up. Very close to the Tuscan border is this village, which is called Lerici. Although popular with Italian visitors, Lerici is usually much less crowded than the busy villages of the Cinque Terre, which are really nearby. The town runs up the hill behind the sea, and face out over the harbor below, which is always filled with small and bigger boats. The main attraction, apart obviously from the very nice promenade and the rocky beaches, is the medieval castle that you can see in the photo, which is set on a promontory at the end of the bay. You can start your exploration of Lerici from the historic center and all the lovely streets around the main square, which is called Piazza Garibaldi, which is dominated by the church Oratorio di San Rocco, which contains several notable paintings. I mean, being in a very small town, it's quite impressive. And then you can climb up the hill to the 20th century castle that dominates the bay. The path that goes from the center to the castle winds through the old Jewish quarter, which seems really a world away from the tourist town below. The main reason for entering the castle is definitely the view, which is amazing. But inside there is also a very nice dinosaurs museum. So, you know, if you have children, it's something quite nice to go and see. I want to briefly mention La Spezia. This port town is usually overlooked by tourists that tend to move immediately to the Cinque Terre nearby or to some of the other more popular villages. But I mean, being Italy's largest naval base, it is not only an affordable place if you want to overnight somewhere close by the Cinque Terre but not want to stay in the Cinque Terre, but it's also very nice to go and explore the streets of the old town, which is full of charm, obviously away from the big harbor and the big port and the noisy that's around, but the old town is very nice. So there's lots of lovely little shops and cozy trattorias. So if you're spending your night here and then you're going during the day to explore the area, it's quite nice and convenient. But then after La Spezia is Porto Venere, which is located on its own small peninsula, as you can see. It's a very picturesque village with lots of colorful houses and some quaint streets that you can explore in the old town. The scenery is so exceptional that the town has been listed as protected by the UNESCO. And the town itself has three history. First, the town was a Roman staging post on the route to France and Spain. Then later it became a fishing village. And then in the early 20th century, Porto Venere started to attract the artistic community and is well known for his association with Byron and Shelley. And in fact, next to the small church of San Pietro, which is done in Gothic style, and you may want to go and explore, you can see a small doorway in a stone wall that leads directly to Byron's cave. So this is said to be the cave where Byron was used to sit and think and get his inspiration. And from this bay is also swum across to meet Shelley in Lerici. From Porto Venere, you can take a ferry and go and explore the Palmaria Island, which is the one that you can see here. So you can see the peninsula of Porto Venere with the church at the top, and that's the Palmaria Island. The island is partly under control of the military Italian Navy, and this is the reason why it has been preserved from wild tourism and from the building industry. Although you can still find some very, very nice beaches, which are quite untouched and wild, and also some nice, lovely restaurants. So it is definitely a place to go and visit. It's a great spot for hiking. You can complete a full tour of the island in about 2 hours. And obviously, reaching it by boat and then going around the island by boat is quite an experience. And if you look at the top, you can see two smaller islands, which are Tino and Tinetto, which can be reached by boat too. And now we get to the Cinque Terre. So the Cinque Terre is this group of century-old seaside villages which are perched on this rugged coastline, as you can see. Each of the 5 towns has colorful houses and vineyards that basically cling the steep terraces, while the harbors are all filled with small fishing boats. There's plenty of authentic little trattorias and tiny little shops. From the Cinque Terre, connecting all the Cinque Terre is the Sentiero Azzurro, which is the famous hiking trail that, as I said, links all the villages. And it continues as far as Porto Venere to the east and Sestri Levante to the west. So it's quite a long way that you can go hiking. So, Liguria is definitely a paradise if you have clients which are, into hiking and trekking. obviously this hiking trail offers incredible views of the sea and is probably one of Europe's most famous hike in general. However, if you fancy something less crowded and maybe a little bit more luxurious, you can definitely take a boat and explore and see the villages from the sea. There are both daily trips from La Spezia and Porto Venere, or you can rent your own private boat. Cars are impractical in the Cinque Terre, as I was saying earlier, because the mountain road that connect the village is quite narrow and winding. Plus, cars are banned from the centers of the villages, so you have to park the car quite up high in car parks and then walk all your way down and obviously up when you want to go back. So a smarter move is, if you're driving, is to head to La Spezia, park the car by the train station and take the train. If you consider that the train from La Spezia to the farthest of the Cinque Terre, which is Monte Rosso, is only 20 minutes, then it is definitely, I mean, a great option for all those that want to visit the Cinque Terre and that don't have their own car. Let's have a look, okay, at the single Cinque Terre. So the first one is Rio Maggiore. And then from Rio Maggiore, you will walk your way through Manarola, Corniglia, Vernazza, and Monte Rosso, which is the last one, if you're coming from the south, coming from Tuscany. Most of the village of Rio Maggiore is squeezed into a narrow and steep valley, as you can see, with tall, colorful houses on either side of the main road and a small arbor below, a very, very small arbor below. The first stretch of the Sentiero Azzurro, so the hiking trail, departs from Rio Maggiore and is the famous part. It takes about 20 minutes to get to Manarola, which is the next village. And it's interesting to know the choice of name from this segment of the path, which is Via dell'Amore, which is literally the street of love. But if you think that this part was originally a service part for railway workers, it's quite funny. I mean, the name that they gave it. There is not a beach in Rio Maggiore itself, but if you take the path around to the left of the arbor, you can reach some large rocks where sunbathing is very popular and where you also get nice views across the coast. My suggestion here is, for a tasty but light lunch, is to try the shops that sell cones of fried anchovies. This is a local specialty, it's delicious, and it's very reasonably priced. And I mean, you don't have to sit at lunchtime in the restaurant, you can just grab one of these and go sunbathing on a rock. Then we take the path and we have now arrived in Manarola. Okay, these lovely villages is huddled on and down the sides of a rocky cliff with, again, the tall, colorful houses leading down to a very small arbor and a piazza below. Some of the houses, as you can see, some of the houses on the water side of the village looks like they may slip into the sea at any moment. But if you think that they've probably been there for about 500 years, I don't think they are at any risk. But it's really, I mean, if you look from outside, if you look from the sea, they really look a little bit precarious. Here you can head to Punto Bonfiglio, which is the headland on the other side of the arbor from the main nest of a house. Here there is a little village cemetery, a pretty park with a summer bar, and a children play area, which sometimes, I mean, with all these sea and beaches, sometimes, you know, you have little kids that want to just chill out a little bit in the shade. So that's a nice play area. And this is also the place to come for views back over the town, because obviously if you are on the town itself, you can't admire it. So if you're not going to go on a boat trip and see it from the sea, if you reach this play area, you can see and you can admire all the village. And then it's also the starting point for the short walk that will bring you to Corniglia, which is of our village. So Corniglia sometimes, oh, sorry. Oh, here it is. Okay. Corniglia sometimes get overlooked because there is this myth that it doesn't have a beach. And also because of the arduous stairway to the top of the hill that probably doesn't help, even if there is a bus that goes up and down, but not everybody knows that. The town doesn't have a port and relied more on its farming skill than fishing. As you can see, they have carved the rocky and steep hillside to make it productive, and they grow grapes on terrace fields, which are called fasce. The local speciality is a white wine, which is in fact called Vernaccia di Corniglia. We have the Vernaccia in San Gimignano in Tuscany, and this one is called Vernaccia di Corniglia. There are a few beaches with incredibly clear water, but to reach them, you have to go many steps. You have many steps to climb, both going in and out. So usually visitors prefer to reach these beaches by boat. The stretch path between Corniglia and Vernazza, so the next village, goes through olive groves, vine, this fragrant orange blossom and rosemary is definitely one of the prettiest segment, but also one of the steepest. So up to you. And then we reach Vernazza, which is one of the prettiest of the Cinque Terre villages. And officially it is listed among the most beautiful villages in Italy. Like all the other villages of the Cinque Terre, we have an arbor and setting of Vernaccia, which is, I mean, the promenade, the colorful houses, these are the real highlights. You don't really have important monuments to go and visit. Vernazza is the only one of the Cinque Terre to have a natural arbor. And then along the way, there are many restaurants, little shops, cafes, and if you just go along this main shopping street from the arbor, you will notice a tunnel through the rock, and this is the tunnel that will bring you to the beach. The trail that starts from Vernazza and ends in Monterosso is probably the one with the best views, but again is one of the steepest, so not easy for everyone. And then on our journey through the Cinque Terre, it ends up on Monterosso. Monterosso is the only town that has a sandy beach, as you can see, and actually it has two sandy beaches, one facing the old town, and the other one in the Bay of Fegina, which is the new suburb which has grown around the train station. The two parts of town are a 10-minute walk from each other along the promenade, so you can easily go up and down as you wish. Monterosso is rather different in character from the other villages of the Cinque Terre, as you can see, and is usually the principal town for visitors because it's the largest, and although the scenery is less dramatic and less picturesque, I mean less picture perfect, Monterosso is very pleasant to explore and offer a wider variety of facilities, including hotels and restaurants. The coast is given an extra interest by the statues that overlook the beach. So there are several statues that overlook the beach. The most important one is called the Giant and represents Neptune, the god of the sea. This massive statue, at first glance, appeared to be part of the rock, but actually it was built out of concrete in 1910, and it is 14 meters high. North of Monterosso is the seaside resort of Levanto, as well as Porto Venere. This is a good base if you are exploring the region and if you're exploring the Cinque Terre but don't want to stay in the Cinque Terre itself. There is a long and sandy beach, as you can see, which is among one of the best sections of the coast. And there's a good choice of cafes and little restaurants. It can get quite crowded in peak summer months, as you can imagine. There is a very pleasant town center with a lively promenade, and also two separate historical districts, and lots of, lovely little streets to explore. The oldest part of Levanto, which is called Borgo Antico, and is centered around Piazza del Popolo and Piazza della Loggia, so two different squares, where there are also a couple of interesting monuments to see. One is the medieval loggia, and the other one is the Church of Sant'Andrea, which are both from the 13th century. We're now moving to the stretch of coastline, which is closer to Genoa, and it starts with Sestri Levante. This resort is one of those places that Italians have managed to keep to themselves and is not well known at all by overseas visitors. The oldest and also the prettiest part of the town has two bays called the Silent Bay, so Baia del Silenzio, and the Bay of the Fairy Tales, la Baia delle Favole. Both bays have lovely beaches, and in the Bay of Fairy Tales, there's also some furnished lighters, and a nice promenade with shops and cafes. And immediately behind the beach, you can see that there are all the tall, colorful houses that are found in most Ligurian villages. The old town also has lovely restaurants and a couple of great ice cream shops. If you love ice cream like me, that's definitely the place to go. Farther north is the town of Rapallo, which again is one of those little secrets that Italians want to keep for themselves. So this is originally a traditional arbor town, and now is probably the largest and most important seaside resort in northwest Italy. Most of the town is developed around a large natural bay where you can find the port and a small fortress, which is this one at the front of the photo. The views across the arbor are very, very nice and very attractive. You can see lots of villas spread up the steep hillsides around the bay. Again, you can stroll along the seafront promenade, which is lovely because it's lined up by palm trees. And it goes all the way to the marina. So if you can see here on the right of the photo, the promenade starts there, and then you can walk all the way down to the marina on the left. There is also a small headland on the seafront with a small bridge connecting it to the town. And here you can see on the right the small bridge, and then you can go to the castle, which was built in 1549 to defend Rapallo against pirates. And although Rapallo doesn't have a proper beach, there are several lighters where you can access the sea. And there is also a tiny area of beach next to the fortress, as you can see here in the photo. Two little villages can be found between Rapallo and Portofino, which is the other most famous destination. And they are Santa Margherita Ligure and Paraggi. The resort of Santa Margherita Ligure is probably one of the most attractive and charming in all the Riviera Ligure. And is also well placed to explore Portofino. So if you don't want to go, and we'll talk about this later, but if you don't want to go to stay in Portofino, this is a good place to be. You can take a stroll along the promenade, pausing for a morning coffee or an afternoon ice cream or aperitivo in the evening. The main attraction of the seafront, although, is the beach, which has some furnished lighter, and the arbor. And again, all the picturesque palm trees that you can see lined up along the promenade. There is this grand building, colored house immediately behind the seafront, and there are some very, very nice hotels here too. There are two quite extensive areas of beach in the center of the town, and this is probably one of the reasons why it's very, very popular from visitors from the regions. There are also a couple of interesting historic monuments, including a small castle built on the waterfront in the middle of the 16th century. Paraggi instead is, sorry, let me look at the question from Paula. How much time for a true Cinque Terre experience? Well, I'll talk about this later, but probably definitely 3 days I would recommend. I mean, you can go and do it in a day and just stay around on a boat trip and hopping from the villages. But if you have 2 or 3 days, you can just see not just the Cinque Terre, but you can also go and see some of the villages around, which are a great experience to include. Okay, so sorry, I was talking about Paraggi. Paraggi instead is a small beach, is a small bay, which is famous for the homonymous beach and is incredibly clear water. But together with the Cinque Terre, Portofino, which we see now, is probably the second most known town of the Riviera di Levante. The town is set in an attractive natural inlet and is surrounded by steep hills covered with olive trees, as you can see. The village is not easy to reach by car, and this is because the road to Portofino is quite narrow and parking is tricky again, and is also very expensive. I think it's about €6 per hour, but I will leave this to Gabriele to confirm later. So we always recommend parking in one of the nearby towns, like Rapallo and Santa Margherita, and take a taxi boat. Obviously, this is if you're not staying in Portofino. The village itself is a traditional Italian fishing village, centered around its arbor and the street which goes behind it. And the arbor, as you can see, is usually filled with luxury yachts. Portofino is really sophisticated, elegant, busy. It is quite expensive, but it's definitely an experience. I mean, if you're visiting Liguria, you definitely have to go to Portofino. If not for a couple of nights, at least for the day. After enjoying your exploration of the arbor, you can climb up the hill to look for the Church of St. George and the 16th century Castle Brown. And enjoy, I mean, the splendid views that can be seen from both the terrace of the church and the castle gardens. But then if you're walking around from Portofino, sorry, why is it turning? Okay. From Portofino, you can also reach one of the most popular landmark of the area, which is the Abbey of San Fruttuoso, which is very well known for the large statue of Christ underwater, just off the coast, which was placed there to protect sailors from harm. Sorry. San Fruttuoso cannot be reached by car or by road. So you have to prepare yourself for an invigorating walk along the cliff in between Camogli and Portofino. Or you can take a scenic boat trip from one of these villages if you prefer. If you take the path that brings to Camogli, which will be nearly empty compared to the hiking trail in the Cinque Terre, after a couple of hours, actually more 2.5 hours, you will reach the village of San Rocco. Again, here there are spectacular views of the surrounding, but also you need to stop in a little restaurant which is called La Cucina di Nonna Nina. And this, I mean, is absolutely a must in the area, and it serves Ligurian dishes, including great antipasti, an antipasto plate, which is made of anchovies, sardines, and octopus salad. So definitely, if you're in the area, you can also go there by car. You don't have to hike at all if you don't want to, but definitely stop there. And this is Camogli. So continuing along the path, you will reach this lovely little town, which is about an hour's drive up from the Cinque Terre. The village has a couple of multi-story palaces, painted again in the color of the region, so these muted pinks, yellows, and terracotta colors. And there are the lovely things is that all the green shutters usually have trompe-l'oeil all around them. So it's very, very nice to see. Unlike the Cinque Terre, oh, sorry. Oh, bye, Mary Beth. Unlike the Cinque Terre or the nearby Portofino, Camogli is again a secret that Italians have kept from themselves. So it is. Oh, sorry, I'm just reading a message from Pauline. Yes, absolutely. I will create another suggested itinerary after the webinar. I know there's so much to take on. And what I usually do, if you haven't been on our private travel agent Facebook group, on the Facebook group, we do post all the itineraries. So you can go there and just download the file. But I will email you, no worries. Okay, so Camogli, again, I mean, is a secret for Italians. All the Italians from Milan, from Turin, they all go there and just enjoy the beach, enjoy the sunshine, and the great food. So it's an ideal escape from the madness of the crowd of other villages if you just pass by. I was there last summer when my husband is from Genoa, so we usually drive along the road from Genoa to Florence quite often, and this is usually our spot to go and just enjoy a lovely pasta with pesto and focaccia bread. Okay. Now, passing by a few more villages, we reach like Recco, for example. Recco is another of my favorite spots. There's not much. I mean, the town itself doesn't offer that much apart from a lovely promenade and beach. But Recco is where they have the famous focaccia di Recco, which is a very, very thin focaccia filled with soft cream cheese, which, I mean, could be like squacquerone or stracchino, which is a very, very Italian cheese that you can't find in other countries, I have to say. I can't find it here in the UK, for example. And it is absolutely delicious. It's my favorite. You can have it just with cheese, or you can have it with cheese and pesto. And definitely every time I'm in Liguria, I stop in Recco and buy my dose of focaccia. So that's definitely something that you may want to do if you are in the area. But let's talk about Genoa. So Genoa is a city that definitely combines the ancient and the modern, I mean the past and the present, and the colors of its buildings and some shadows. I mean, it is a big city. And I mean, you can still see in its culture, in its squares, in the food, in the building, the story of one of the most important maritime republic of Italy. You can breathe the atmosphere. I mean, walking around the Carruggi, which are the small street inside the town, the old town center. Sorry, there are two more questions. Let me have a look. I'll email. I'll just post it later, Susan, the name. And yes, Paul, Carol, if you're not on Facebook, I will email the itinerary. No worries at all. So in general, there are plenty of things to see. There are some very nice palaces like Palazzo Recari Parodi, Palazzo Campanella, Palazzo Podestà, Palazzo Spinola di Perliceria, which with its precious painting from Rubens, Van Dyck, and Bernardo Strozzi. So there's a lot to see. There are beautiful palaces from the Renaissance that you can admire when visiting the city center. But if you visit Genova, you absolutely also want to stop by the aquarium, which is one of the most complete and technologically advanced marine life centers in Europe. And it was designed by the famous architect Renzo Piano. And then from here, we move to the Riviera di Ponente. So we're going west. And the next larger town would be Savona, which is one of the provinces. Although very nice, I wouldn't probably include it in a client itinerary, and that's the reason why I skipped it. Just so much to say that I had to skip something. While definitely worth a visit is Finale Ligure, which has lovely beaches and a promenade that goes straight into the marina. The sandy beach is nice, long, and due to the cliff that hangs directly on the beach, you have these rows of palm trees and the hill rising right behind, which create for a very, I mean, a beautiful setting. There's many little restaurants again, and the lively atmosphere of the promenade continues late into the evening and into the night, as well as the shopping street or behind the seafront. So is really a pleasant place to stay in the summer. Finale Ligure also has a pleasant old town center with two adjoining squares, Piazza di Spagna and Piazza Vittorio Emanuele, both with lots of lovely cafes. You can just sit there, enjoy your glass of wine and some people watching. And the most imposing historic monument is the Baroque church in the old town, which is beautifully decorated and has a beautifully painted ceiling. Moving farther north is the city of Imperia, which is a lovely coastal city formed by grouping Porto Maurizio, which is another village, Oneglio, and many surrounding villages. And this was done in 1923 under a decree of Mussolini. The touristic side of the city is based around Porto Maurizio, which is the one that you see in the photo, while Oneglio is more devoted to the production of olives and flowers. And in fact, Imperia is a big olive oil production city, and you can also find out more about the local production in the Museo dell'Olivo, which is the Museum of the Olive Oil. It is also a great producer of flowers, as it is its neighboring town of Sanremo. So the coastal resort of Sanremo was a very important social center around the 19th century, and then it was still popular until the mid of the 20th century. You can start a visit with a walk around Porto Vecchio, which is the old charming harbor, and then wander along the seafront and the main boulevards that lead to the town center, where you can see many of the grand villas and their surrounding gardens, which are absolutely amazing. The tourist office itself is one of the most impressive of these houses, which is called Palazzo di Riviera. In the western part of the town is the casino, which is the most well-known building in Sanremo, and is also one of the very few casinos in Italy, because gambling is sort of illegal in Italy. The casino is built in the Art Nouveau style, and behind the harbor is the medieval center of the town, which is largely pedestrianized and very pleasant to explore. I mean, you can get lost in all these narrow streets, wander around, enjoy a coffee, some shopping. So it's very, very nice. The town is regularly referred to as the city of flowers, because in Sanremo, on the last Sunday of each March, there is a procession that includes floats decorated with flowers and music. You can see one in the photo. But obviously, if you're not around in March, you can still visit the flower market, which is one of the largest and most beautiful in Italy. Last but not least is Ventimiglia. As we said, Ventimiglia is just a few kilometers from the border with France and about 12 kilometers to Mentone. It has this enviable position between the Italian Riviera and the Côte d'Azur, and has been a popular tourist destination for quite a long time. Although it is not the most visited of the Riviera towns, but it is very charming and lovely to stop by. It has divided into two parts: the higher old town, which has an interesting historic center, and the more recent town below, which is the one that you can see here in the photo. And they are separated by the River Roya. There is also a beach in Ventimiglia, which is rather stony, but with lovely views of the Riviera. So you're at the top here of what we said, like an arch, so you can see all the Riviera from here. It's now time to talk about the food scene, as we have done in all our webinars so far. So although Liguria's fantastic pesto attracts lots of coverage, and it's probably, the most famous dish of Liguria, it's sometimes take away from the beauty and from the tastefulness of all the other dishes. And in fact, with an healthy diet centered around vegetables, fruits, olive oil, pasta, fish, and wild herbs that can be found in the hillside, the region is full of culinary delights. On every street corner, you can find shop selling, obviously, the pesto, which is made from the basil of Pra, which is a little village near Genoa, and also the typical focaccia genovese. Fair enough, I did my focaccia genovese yesterday in preparation of my webinar. And the focaccia is the perfect, speedy, simple picnic. If you can, you just grab and go to the beach. So you definitely have to try it. Extra virgin olive oil is the key ingredient in the focaccia, as well as in many other dishes like the farinata, which is a sort of focaccia but made with chickpea flowers and very, very thin. And then obviously the pesto, which has lots of olive oil. Thanks to the climate, which is more temperate in Liguria, the olive oil is much more delicate and sweet and fruitier also than the one produced in other parts of Italy, in Tuscany, for example, which is neighboring. The olive taggiasche, the taggiasca olive, is served as a tasty aperitif and can be used to make the local olive paste, which is great spread on bread. But Ligurians also have a sweet tooth. And in every town, you can find pastry and biscuit shop, which probably have been around for 100 years. You can enjoy a food tour, a general food tour, or a food tour which is dedicated only to these sweet delicacies. One is, for example, the canestrelli, which is a crumbly round shortbread biscuit, which has a hole in the middle and is very popular for breakfast, but also served after meal with sweet white wine. And what about the wine, as we said? So, well, Liguria doesn't produce much wine, but what it does is certainly deserve to be acknowledged. So there are a few different types of wine. There is the Rossese, which is a ruby-colored red, which complements meat and game dishes, and it comes from the vineyards around Ventimiglia. Then there is the vine grows in the valleys behind Imperia that produce the Ormeasco. Then closer to the coast is the Vermentino, which is a fresh white wine that is very good with fish and seafood. Then there is the Pigato in the Albenga Valley, which is again a lightly fragrant white wine, which has a bit almond taste. And then in the vineyards around Finale Ligure, they produce a particularly fresh and slightly acidic, I will say, white wine, which is called Lumassina. As you can see from the photo, it is worth mentioning that harvesting in Liguria can be quite tricky due to the way the vineyards are laid along the cliffs. There are trucks for carts that bring the grapes up and down. And it's definitely not an easy job at all. But it's now time to let Gabriele introduce you these splendid hotels from Belmont. But let's see the video first. Oh, is it not starting again? Sorry. Okay, perfect. Gabriele, do you want to go ahead and talk to us about Belmont?
Absolutely. Buonasera a tutti. Good evening to everybody. Thank you, Chiara, for inviting me. Very happy to be here. I would like to start from the video. And from the video, what is crucial for us is to inspire our. Can you hear me? To inspiring our guests. That's why you have seen some beautiful and amazing experience you can live in Portofino with us. Now I would like to start from just explain where we are in Italy, because we are not just in Liguria. Belmont is present all over the country, and we are in Venice with the Belmont del Cipriani, in Tuscany with 2 properties, Belmont Villa San Michele and Castel di Casale. Amalfi Coast, we are present with Belmont Castello, Belmont Hotel Caruso, and in Taormina 2 properties, Grand Hotel Timeo and Villa Sant'Andrea. And now we go straight to Liguria, the beautiful Liguria we have seen so far, and we have 2 properties in Portofino. One is Hotel Belmont Hotel Splendido, the iconic hotel of Portofino, and the Belmont Hotel Splendido Mare. It's a boutique hotel in the lively piazzetta of Portofino. And yes, you can see here, you can see where we are located. Belmont Hotel Splendido is on the top of the hill with the best view on this great destination, and Belmont Splendido Mare, just in the middle of the piazzetta. Let me say that the combination and the union between the destination and the property is very straight. So when you think about Portofino, comes always in mind Hotel Splendido. Now we go to Splendido Mare, the boutique hotel just in front of the harbor of Portofino, the piazzetta, very lively all over here. And it's the most, let me say that Portofino, it's really one of the most glamour destination in the country. You still have a feeling of La Dolce Vita. And here you can see the building of Splendido Mare with the famous restaurant To Fly. And Belmont Splendido Mare was sort of a guest house for fishermen. Now, it's a renovation, and we were planning to open this property this year in June. Then now we have a different situation, different scenario, and I can tell you that this year this property will not open. And the main reason is because we were doing renovation here, reducing also the number of rooms from 16 to 14 in order to offer an upgrade to our for our rooms. Now you can see some examples of new rooms. This is one, and scrolling and this is one, the junior suite with a view village. Here we have the suite of a garden, the top suite of this beautiful boutique hotel, with this terrace overlooking the bay and overlooking the harbor. And it's a great spot because we can also organize private events for your clients in the place where the place where everybody loves to be in Portofino. To fly restaurant, it's really an iconic spot of the piazzetta. And what is very nice is that in combination with the restaurant, we have Gelateria San Giorgio, that where you can really enjoy a great gelato, a great ice cream.
Okay, you shouldn't have said that, Gabriele. My mind
Oh,
my mouth is watering now.
So good, so good. And yes, and it's all about La Dolce Vita. This is something that you can really feel once in Portofino. Because Portofino was a great destination from great actors, from great painters, great artists, and you have still this feeling of these great persons coming through this land.
I mean, definitely, I think that together with Positano, Portofino is probably the next icon of the Dolce Vita in Italy.
Exactly. From Ava Gardner, from Sophia Loren, from the Kennedys, everybody was been there. Now we left the Splendido Mare and we go straight to Belmont Hotel Splendido on the top of the hill. Please note that we have a complimentary shuttle service that goes from the Hotel Splendido to Hotel Splendido Mare. This is great because if guests want to, from Hotel Splendido, go to the Piazzetta, they can easily do, and they can avoid the problem of the car that Chiara was mentioning before.
Yep.
And vice versa, if clients from the Splendido Mare would like to enjoy a great aperitivo in the beautiful terrace with a breathtaking view, they can easily use our shuttle service. We have some element that we will see in these pictures, and we are in common with all our properties in Italy. It's always detected to be a resort. Now we are in Portofino, but even if we are in a city like Venice or Florence, the concept is always the concept of resort. We have large terraces, large gardens where our guests can find as a private piece of paradise. And this, especially if we look at the situation we have now, it's a great added value because we are sure that with the right procedures, we can guarantee the safety and the distance that we need to provide in the future. But now have a look at these beautiful rooms. The style is very connected to the destination. So it's a Mediterranean style with some touch of nautical style, and the colors are very bright. And the most part of our units are overlooking the sea. And this is really a great selling point. Here we are, our representative suite and dining. Chiara was focusing a lot of how good is the food and the experience of food and wine in Liguria, and you can really have this authentic experience in our restaurant. In Ristorante La Terrazza, that is our main restaurant, in the pool and restaurant and bar, or we can create for your clients some special events in one of hidden corner of our garden, as you can see from these pictures. The swimming pool, the infinity pool overlooking the harbor, the bay, is really and breathtaking. It's a unique spot. You have all the blue of the sea, the blue of the sky, very romantic, let me say. And yes, Portofino, it's a very romantic destination. But please allow me to say that we love to focus that we are kids friendly, so we are very open to receive families. We have a lot of connecting suite rooms, and we have a smile club for kids. where we can select a nice experience for them. And in the gardens we can reserve a corner, as you can see in this picture, for spa treatment. The facilities you can find at the hotel is the spa, the gym, the tennis court, the restaurant, and the bars I have mentioned before. And another value is the fact to the possibility to enjoy the spa treatment here in this beautiful corner with this unique view of the Liguria coast. And same concept, so to create special experiences and special events for our guests, we can organize a picnic here in one of the terraces of the Splendid, or a family table, as you can see in this other picture on the right. Now I would like to focus a little bit on experiences we love to offer to our clients. Our concierge team is absolutely very strong on this point. Scrolling these pictures, you will see some ideas of what is possible to do. It's just a short selection and the fil rouge that links all these experiences is the fact to be outdoor, to be an authentic experience, and to be private. So a bike tour, private tour by boat, or visit a organic farmhouse where discover the tradition of great food and wine. Thank you. I really look forward to see you in Liguria, in Portofino. If you have any question through Chiara, please feel free to refer to me.
Thank you very much, Gabriele. So I'll just finish the presentation and then we leave some minutes for question and answer if there's any. Okay, so when to go to Liguria? Well, I mean, the Liguria has a mildest climate, so tourists visit Liguria literally every time of the year. But you have to know that November and February can be quite wet, so are usually best avoided. In Liguria, there is a clearly defined ice season that runs from May to September. And obviously, during this period, the coast can be very busy, especially at weekends where Italians join in. So in winter, the air is clear and the views are at their best. So, I mean, it's quite amazing to do a walk along the Cinque Terre part in peace with no one around and gaze across the sea to Corsica, which can be seen in the clear winter days. Spring and autumns are probably the best for sightseeing, and for many of the sports activity, obviously those that are not related to the sea. Although, even in the coolest month of January, February, and March, the average daily temperature is about 12 degrees, so not bad at all, while in the summer it ranges from 25 to 30 degrees. And who is Liguria for? Well, I probably repeating myself, but Liguria is definitely for everyone. So you have sandy beaches and crystal clear water to relax and spend time with your family. You have rocks, valleys, and streams of lake, which are perfect for trekking lovers and hiking lovers, as we said. There's 186 miles of coast with the highest concentration of aquatic mammals in the Mediterranean Sea. So it's a paradise for scuba divers, snorkelers, and sea enthusiasts in general. Not to mention all the lovely villages, rich in history and culture, shopping, great restaurants, and obviously, in fact, the amazing food scene. And now my top tips as usual. So the first one, plan at least 3 days in the region so that you have enough time to explore not only the Cinque Terre, but maybe also 1 or 2 more villages. When visiting the Cinque Terre, definitely avoid arriving by car unless you have a private driver. Obviously, that's another story. You can choose to reach the villages by train or by boat. And I would recommend in the Cinque Terre to try at least one segment of the hiking in between villages and to hop on a train or on a boat to do some island hopping. As I always say, try the local street food. You will fall in love with the focaccia genovese, as I said, the fried anchovies, the pesto, the focaccia from Recco. I mean, these are all amazing and great. Obviously, the pesto is not a street food, but all the others are great street food that you can try. It is definitely great to take a cooking class here too. So you can learn how to make panzotti, which is a type of ravioli. How to learn the focaccia. As I said, I did my focaccia at home yesterday in a normal oven, so you can do too. And then, I mean, since obviously Liguria is almost on the sea, it's great to enjoy a boat tour, whether it's a private yacht or sailboat, or is a shared one from one of the main harbor, I mean, from La Spezia to Portofino. It's great to go and admire the coast from the sea, and to see all these lovely villages, one next to the other. So thank you very much. It's great. I did it within an hour today, so proud of myself. Thank you so much for tuning in. Next week, we go to Sardinia. So another great sea, another great island. And I can anticipate to you that next week we will probably have 2 guests joining us, just because the coast and the inland of Sardinia are so different that we're bringing to you 2 different aspects to enjoy. It will be next Wednesday. I will send you the link to register tomorrow, together with the link, to view the recording of this webinar. And again, as usual, here you can see. Oh, sorry, I moved up. Here you can see how to stay in touch with us. You can see my email, our general email, our Facebook group. But now let's have a look at the question. Thank you so much, Lisa. Nice meeting you. Thank you, Michael. Is there any question for myself or for Gabriele that you would like us to answer? If not, as I said, I'll send you an email by tomorrow, and I also, oh, thank you, Ro. and I also send the itinerary for the Liguria, and put everything in our Facebook group. So if you are on Facebook, I invite you to join us and find lots of contact in there. Thank you so much, Valerie, Pauline. Okay, so thank you so much, everyone. Stay safe and see you next week. Oh, thank you, Evelyn. Bye-bye.